Welcome to another edition of That Time When. Matt Miller with you in Studio 4. Today we're continuing the flashback through the Talk and Trek series from 2019 with Lee Sargent. We're up to Voyager now, which means we're getting really close to the end of this mini-series. So I'm looking forward to that, but I am looking forward to catching up with Voyager. Well, welcome to a Trekzone conversation. This week, we're continuing the Talk and Trek theme. We're diving deep into Star Trek in the lead up to Star Trek Las Vegas. And joining me once again is Mr. Lee Sargent. Lee, thanks for coming back and talking some more Trek.
Oh, thanks very much for having me.
Now, today...
I just realised I say that every week, so next week I won't say that. Next week I'll just say, yeah, you're lucky to have me here.
You're lucky I came back. My appearance fee is $50.
Exactly.
Well, you can find Lee on Twitter at Lee Sargent and on Facebook with Lee Draws Stuff. Check him out. He's an awesome guy drawing awesome things. And you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at MirrorMatt86. Today, Lee, we're going to be talking about Voyager.
Yes.
The first female captain-led ship gets lost in the Delta Quadrant in the first 40 minutes and spends 7 years meandering around a different quadrant of our galaxy. How did you take this series?
I saw news of this series in a newspaper article. Now, for the kids at home, a newspaper used to be a large paper-based website.
Printed.
I remember very distinctly seeing news of Voyager in a newspaper article in the library at school. So that's, Deep Space Nine had been on for a couple of years. I think Next Generation was winding up. And there were photos of, there was like the set photos of Janeway and crew. So it was obviously after the First Lady was replaced. And I remember going, oh, okay, cool. Well, this is, okay, new show. That's great. We've had Deep Space Nine and that had worked out fine. And Voyager was coming, so I had no kind of trepidation there. Again, back then we had newspapers, not websites. So there wasn't any kind of stirrings of misogyny or anything like that. It was just a TV show that was coming out. And then it kind of, I don't remember watching it on TV. I think I watched it via video. I think it became every month they would release 2 videos in Australia. That's how you'd watch it type of thing. Each video had like 2 or 3 episodes on it. And they had the amazing box cover art and stuff. And I initially loved it. I loved Caretaker. I thought it was a really strong pilot episode. But then the Gilligan's Island effect kicked in very, very quickly. This whole, are we going to get home? No, we're not. Whole process. And I just, and every episode reset to the norm, and it was extraordinarily disappointing. Coming off Deep Space Nine, that was starting to ramp up its story arcs. So, we were seeing episodes of, 3-episode storylines and stuff like that. And everything was building up to what would eventually become the Dominion War. And yet we had this new show that was set in a different galaxy with no help, with no kind of support. Yet every episode they just came back shiny, brand new. Another shuttlecraft was in the bay. As every episode kind of clicked over, it was like it was getting more and more, this isn't going to do anything. This is just going to do story of the week and this whole, we're on our way home. It's going to take us 75 years. So,
a couple of photon torpedoes.
It's fine. Like it's never going to be a real issue. Home's never going to be an issue type of thing because we're never going to be there. Yeah, that was the growing dissatisfaction and fear that the show would become extraordinarily bland. And I think for a long time, Voyager was considered to be the weakest of all the shows. And that's nothing to do with the cast, which is the frustrating part, is that we had this amazing crew who were very interesting and put into a very horrible situation. And we just never we just never got to really explore that. And I don't think we ever got to explore it except for Year of Hell, Part 1 and 2. And Year of Hell Part 1 and 2 is what the series should have been. Not as aggressive, but my pitch for Voyager should have always been that it should have been like Battlestar Galactica, in that there should have been a fleet of ships by the end of season 7. There should have been this fleet of ragtag ships that gathered together under the protection of Voyager and protecting each other as they made their way through this awful area of space, being attacked by Trekzone, even though Trekzone never had any legs in them as characters. The Voyager itself should have had alien technology incorporated into it because there was no Starfleet technology to replace things. So the deflector dish should have been blown out at some point and then replaced with a Vidian deflector dish. The crew should have been mixed up even more. There should have been deaths. There should have been, much more than what we saw. That was the promise of the premise, and the premise never delivered that, unfortunately.
I remember my family's first encounter with it. For me, being a little younger than yourself, I remember that we were on holiday.
You only have vague recollections of newspapers.
Oh no, I remember them. They used to get thrown on your lawn every morning, wrapped up in that green plastic that you could never pick open. But we were on holiday in the US back in 1995, in January 95, and we spent, I think it was a couple of days in San Diego, and it was in that hotel that the pilot episode went to air. So we must have been watching it on UPN, and then to come home. And it would have been a few months later that it was finally broadcast on Channel 9. So that was the sort of experience with that. And then there was the back in Perth at one of the universities, they had it was a club called the Neutral Zone, and what they used to do was that I don't know the background behind this. It must have been one of the organisers must have travelled to and from the US a lot for work or whatever it might have been, and they always used to come back with off-air recordings of the latest Voyager and Deep Space Nine. Or they were posted or something like that. We had them every week. So every Friday night you'd go down to Murdoch Uni and you would, you on the big screen, big lecture hall there, you would go in and you would watch the latest episodes with a whole bunch of Trekkies. And it was a little bit like a convention, a weekly convention, until Paramount obviously said, well, hang on, you're earning membership fees. You're broadcasting bootleg copies of the show. Stop. So that sort of stopped.
And again, it's like they give us the show on time.
Well, isn't that funny that even back in 1997 or whenever it might have been, 97, 98, around that time, that we were still hungry for these shows, same time as the US. That has never changed, but the Australian...
Well, it's interesting you said that you saw the pilot episode and then you think it was a couple of months. I guarantee it wasn't a couple of months.
Probably wasn't.
I guarantee it was probably about a year that you saw the next episode.
I do remember it was Friday night at 8:30, so it was a prime time airing, and then it went to its Tuesday midnight slot after Nightline.
Which is what Deep Space Nine did as well. It was like, the first episode, and then we're just going to chuck it on late at night.
Unless it was a rerun, because 5 years seems a long time. I do know that No,
5 years would have been too long, but I think about a year.
Must have been a rerun.
About a year. Because as I said, I watched it on VHS because it was not worth kind of... I actually think that the VHSs probably came out either before it was aired on TV. Like I honestly don't know if they were airing it or whether I just missed episodes of it, so I didn't bother watching it on TV.
It's an absolute thrill that Lee Sargent joined me across 2019 to chat about the entire Star Trek franchise. Got to get him back. I'm sure there's more that we could talk about. Star Wars, Stargate, whatever else it might be. Leave a comment if you want to hear Lee's thoughts on anything else, and I'll be sure to put it to him and see if he'll come back to the show. If you wanted to catch that chat in full, it was the others, TNG and DS9 were across 3 parts. This one went back to the 1-episode format. To catch that in full, click the card in the top of the video right now on YouTube. Or if you're listening to me on a podcast, or you need to jump over to Trekzone.org, scroll down on the homepage to the That Time When section, click Recapping Talk and Trek with Voyager, and then on the official watch page there, it'll give you a link to jump back to the 2019 episode. But for now, and as always, I'm Matt Miller for Trekzone.
Keep up to date with Twitter. Catch new podcasts daily on YouTube. Plus, we're beaming to your favorite podcast app 5 days a week. Just search for Trekzone and subscribe.